So I go into a alpha brainwave state and I ask the land, what does it want from me? I have been on land where I go, this is shit. This doesn't feel good. She'd been abused as a child, and the place that she was safest was the living room. But she didn't realise that's why the living room was so important to her. That floorboard has some story that comes from her friend Sally's house. Its dollar value has nothing to do with its emotional value. And I smell a cigarette. I'm there with my dad sitting on the rock. They're pieces of your heart that got lit up at a certain point. But we found it through digging through an emotional floor plan.
So most people hire a designer to draw a house. Now, our guest today, Adrian Ramsay, thinks that's the wrong starting point entirely. He's spent 22 years designing custom homes. He hosts his own podcast and hosts Dream Homes Revealed on Channel 9. But what makes him really interesting is actually how he thinks. So today we're going to get into that. Welcome to the podcast, Adrian.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me, man. Real privilege.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's good to have you. So I'll kick straight into it. You've worked in a number of different industries, everything from film, fashion, systematic innovation, and now you're in the architecture space. What I'm curious about is, at what point did you sort of stop collecting all these identities and actually start owning one?
I haven't. It's a really good question, eh? If I had an identity that it's just to design. And my things that I'm not good with is I'm dyslexic, so reading and writing isn't my strongest suit. And then there's a dose of ADHD in there, so then focus is also, it's really intense when it's intense, and then otherwise it's kind of fairly diffused. It can be distracted really easily. But the consistent line in my life is being able to draw, build rapport with people, understand people, and then the high analytics of being able to take that information and transfer it into a design sense, whether that be a product or even marketing, whatever it is. And the last 25 years, I started designing houses, which I would have done when I was 18 or 20 or something if I could have gone to university. Okay. So I couldn't go to university because I couldn't get the marks to get into university and from my schooling, and I wanted to be an architect back then. So I decided if I couldn't do that, I would design something else. So clothing design became my thing for quite a few years and worked all around the world as a clothing designer. But design is the one thing that I can do and work with people. The other thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess you talk about that dyslexia. I mean, my understanding is that dyslexia is all to do with the word. So do you view the world, I guess, in a different way, like rather than verbally and looking at briefs and things on paper, are you looking at things in a different way? And does that sort of change how you approach building design and design in general?
I'd like to say maybe, but I don't know how you would do it. So I don't have this is what other people do, this is what I do. It's about 10% of the world are dyslexics. And dyslexia it kind of works in lots of different ways for different people. For instance, Sir Winston Churchill was a dyslexic, but a brilliant historian. And then you take somebody like Richard Branson, dyslexic, Whoopi Goldberg, dyslexic, one of the guys who started Google, dyslexic. But one of them could be really good with facts and figures and could be really good with another written form. For me, I'm not super extreme like that. It's just the biggest challenge for me is if you give me a page of text, I'm looking around on my desk for a book, but if I had a book, I might read 3 words at a time, whereas you would read it sentence by sentence, just scanning and taking it. So context from the written word for me is really hard. I have to read it. Sometimes I have to read it out loud, but I start out by reading it word by word by word, about 3 words. If I get about 4 words or 5 words ahead, I've lost what the other 3 meant. So it's not just visual. It's also can be affected hearing wise and also instructional wise. I might give somebody an instruction, but I probably should have given them a lot more instruction, because somewhere in my mind I've decided these are the bits that they need. They may need way more than that. So with it, in the design sense, I'm converting landscapes, conversations to a built form. And when I was in the clothing sense, I was doing the same. But in this case, a built form, and how that interacts with those things, with the landscape. So a friend of mine, Jeffrey Dungan from America, he's quite a well-known architect there. Jeffrey said to me once, well, you know what it's like. You look across the land and the house builds itself. Does that happen for you?
No, not
It
at all.
happens for me. 100% happens for me. And then the briefing of conversation that, so I look across the land and I automatically identify, maybe naturally, I'm not sure, but identify north, south, east, west. So I know, doesn't matter which hemisphere I'm in, either the sun's coming up always in the east, it's always setting in the west. In the climate zone that we're in, the feel of that climate zone, is it going to overheat from the west? Like I'm in Queensland, you're in WA, it's going to overheat from the west. The east will be fine, the north will be fine, and the south, in my case, where I am in Queensland, the south's no big deal because it doesn't get cold enough, our temperate kind of climate. And yours probably similar. It will get cold, but so then when we're talking with, first of all, when we're talking with the land, and I know that sounds pretty woo-woo, but when we're talking with the land, I do this thing called land whispering. That is to get a real feel of the land, because land is got a magnetic force in it. It's got an energy in it. And that magnetic force could have geopathic stress lines and different things like that with it, which you wouldn't want to live on. That first thing of feeling the land is also going, oh, so my sun's going to come from here. This is going to come from here. Where's my noise come from? What's going to happen? So that first piece is talking with the land. And the more woo-woo you get, I ask the land as well. So I go into a alpha brainwave state and I ask the land, what does it want from me? I am going to do something. What does it want from me? And that will guide where we may position or how we may position something. Then come internally to a home, if it's a home for you, through a series of questions and observations. We would decide whether you, for instance, may want to wake up with the sunshine. Then we have to decide whether that's daylight or sunlight. And the distinction is sunlight actually is the light, the sun hitting on you, as opposed to just being in daylight. Like right now, both of us are in some form of daylight, but we're not in sunlight. And so would you want direct sunlight on you in the morning as you wake up? And if the answer is yes, then we know that we have to position that room or part of that room somewhere where it will access that direct sunlight. And that will determine what time they wake up. So when I'm doing it, I look across the land. I've already had some conversations with you. I go, right, so your bedroom's going to be over there. It's going to need to be elevated to there. It's going to need these things. Then what else are we going to put together? How else do you live at what times? And how do you want it to feel? And how do you want it to bring you health and well-being and joy and growth, I suppose? Like, how do you want your health span and your lifespan to be a matched pair? No point in being old and sick. You might as well be old and well. So mentally and physically.
Yeah. Well, I really like the sort of the land whispering angle. And it is something that I guess I've never really heard before. Like, have you ever walked onto a site and felt like genuinely unsettled? Like, the land was saying no?
Yep, definitely. And interestingly, one of the things that you can do is if you observe children on land, they will go to certain things. There's certain, if we were in a pasture, like a cow paddock, just like the cows, we'd go and stand under the trees, and that would have some kind of feeling. Usually one of that's other than the cow shit, but it would be one that is comforting because we've got the weight of the tree and we've got the canopy over us. So that naturally calms our sympathetic nervous system a little because of the fact that we've got shelter and protection from the trunk of the tree. So that could be a real misnomer as well. And the other thing is so children are really good. You'll see where they gravitate to, and they'll just stay away from things that don't feel good because they're so much more in tune. Dogs won't even walk across a geopathic stress line. They won't even go on it. They'll just turn and move away. I have been on land where I go, this is shit. This doesn't feel good. It doesn't. Everything is just like you're hitting a barrier. And quite often I will go and, for clients, go and view, say, 3 pieces of land or 4 pieces of land before they've purchased. So there's a bunch of searches and stuff that we want to know. What are the regulations, and is there any, like, is there a mains water pipe buried in there? What is there on that land? Is there any high tension wires? Is there any of those things? Anyway, outside of that, then we're going, well, what does it feel like? And I often do it in bare feet, not always, but more often than not bare feet. I'm there before the sun comes up. I'm there after the sun goes down. I want to see it wake up. I want to see it go to sleep. But with it, if it feels like really uncomfortable, then is that me or is it the land? And that's when you go into a conversation with the land with your alpha brainwaves turned on. So you switch on your alpha brainwaves, which is your flow state, and you go into a very conscious meditative state. And with that, then listen for what it's telling you. Listen for what it's throwing up. I've been on land where it's got like a fire zone on it, and walked around on the land, and this was on a farm. But there was a certain spot that was the spot that you would logically go, this is where we should build. Anyway, there's this magic spot that you just go, you walked onto it, and actually I asked the owners, take me to your favourite spot, was the first thing. And they were like, oh, we'll drive the buggy. I said, no, we'll walk. And so we did, we walked to it. And with that, we were getting closer and closer to the tree line and elevated. And we moved into L29, I think, fire zone. Now, I knew where we were headed because I'd looked at all the maps for the land to know what it was. And so we're in this spot and they're going, we can just imagine a home here. And it feels so amazing. You can see all this and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm going, yeah, but you're probably not going to build here. And they're like, why not? I said, because the house that you'd have to build here will be compromised by the fire zone, even though it feels so good.
Yeah.
So that part of it was, okay, let's look for secondary spots. And that first spot did have a couple of what I would call logical negatives to it. Yeah. I'll give you an example. So it was on a ridge that was running down from the land down towards the road. And the road had cars that would be coming essentially directly towards you. Basically, at their driveway, there was a right angle turn, not a stop sign, just a really sharp turn, probably something like 70 or 80 degree turn going around. Because of where the height of that was, it meant that at night, you would always have headlights coming towards you, turning and leaving. So you would end up with quite a bit of energy being brought towards you. Now, everybody slows down for the corner except for the ones who go off the road, which there are apparently. Everyone slows down for the corner and then everyone accelerates after the corner. So you've also got a noise thing, plus you've got this constant, and I shouldn't say constant, country road, but quite a busy thoroughfare. You've got this constant energy pushing towards you, slowing down, and then going away. That's not rest. Mm. So when you're looking, that's a logical thing to go, well, that's not restful. So even though the area felt really good, but the, actually, I think the bell zone was 32, but anyway, whatever. The fact is that we weren't probably going to build in that spot. We had to find another spot. We found another spot lower down, still amazing views, but the hump of the ridge brought us down and over like this, so we could tuck the house down in just behind that hump and use more flat land and stuff, but use all that and then not have, even though that energy's still there, the hill was taking the energy, not
Yeah.
them. It's a pretty simple example of it.
Yeah.
Another one would be a builder that I was working with. He said his own place. He said to me about, how do you choose exactly where do you site the house? And I said to him, well, you tell me. And he said, well, we've been camping on this piece of land with our caravan, and we've got a fire pit set up, and we're da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, so where are you going to build the house? And he goes, well, where we've got the fire pit. He said, it's just beautiful spot, like easily the best spot. I've never been on the land, by the way. And I said to him, so which room are you going to put on where the fire pit is? Are you going to put the laundry? Oh, it's being a smart ass to be dramatic. And he kind of looks at me and I said, well, which room? And he goes, well, the living room, I guess. And I said, so then where will the fire pit go? I hadn't really thought about that. And I said, well, Frank Lloyd Wright, the 20th century's most famous architect, used to say a thing, build adjacent to wherever the magic is. And so I said to this guy, I said, mate, why wouldn't you keep the fire pit where it is? Because it's got magic. And we dug into why it's magical, because it's family, it's community, it's relaxing, it's non-stressful, all the rest. Keep the fire pit where it is and pull the house back to here, and then wrap the house in around the fire pit so that we're adjacent to that magic, but we never lose it. Because the minute we bulldoze it, do something, we've lost it. And he's like, you saved me. He said, I would have built it right on top of it. And he goes, but you saved it. And that's not even being on it. That's just asking some logical questions to work out what it is. And being a bit of a smart ass, I wanted to throw that tension into the conversation by saying, so what will you put the laundry on there? Because that would have to be about the lowest value room in your home.
Yeah.
Not dollar-wise, just opportunity-wise.
Yeah. Now, I mean, with that, I guess, line of questioning and obviously through experience, but I'm assuming this isn't what's taught in design school when it comes to architecture. So where did you get this sort of unique angle from?
I don't know. I think it was when I first started doing design, in the sense of, a bit designing homes for people. I was very aware of them telling me stories, and I'm a storyteller and a story collector. I was very aware of them telling me stories, and when they were telling me stories, they'd get either excited and uplifted, or they would be telling me a story that was dragging them down, that kind of thing. So they'd be saying, oh, I don't want this because my Aunt Mary had this and it was blah, 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 blah. So I started pulling out of them stories about things that made a difference for them. Like, so where did you used to go on your family holidays? Did you have any grandparents? So who was your favorites? Where did you go? Was there other places? Were there rituals? Were there like traditions? And they would light up and tell me about, they had a family farm that their grandparents had lived on a family farm, and they'd never lived on the farm, but they went there on holidays. And, then I'd be like, well, what kind of house was it? And we'd dig into what kind of a house it was. And then we'd find out that they were fairly anchored to the feelings of that home. Then also things that they loved with travel, restaurants, movies, things like that, what was sparking their style and their interest. But their stories either go up and animated, or else they come down. And then when you're designing, or when I'm designing, it's like baiting a hook. So you're throwing bits of bait into the water. So you're making assumptions. So you're going, oh, so this means this, and you will present that some way and throw a baited bit of, a baited hook into the water. You'll see it in their face. Their eyes will light up, they'll twinkle, they'll whatever, or they'll scrunch their nose, or their body language will give away how much interest it had. And I've had people whose faces have lit up, and then they've suddenly become self-conscious and decided they've revealed too much of themselves, and then they'll start backpedaling, and I'll chase them on, one second, I just saw that. Tell me about that. tell me about what happened there. Tell me about why it was important. Tell me, tell me what the environment was like. And they would start telling you about, I don't know, all the women standing in the kitchen. And as a little kid, they got to sit on the bench and, everybody was there prepping food and it was a joyous kind of thing. And, her dad would come in from fishing and he would be scaling fish outside and mum would be yelling down to him or whatever it is. But all those little memories can be triggers as to what you're going to design for them. So more than anything, I don't know that it really answers the question, but more than anything, it became about how it feels and what makes it feel like that.
So essentially, rather than just designing for rooms and budgets, you're sort of designing more for emotions. And is that
100%.
yeah, okay. Now, are there certain types of emotions that you're designing for, and emotions that you might not think about that you probably should consider?
Oh, good question, man. There's certainly ones you're designing for. Let me think on that bit first, or say something on that bit first. You're usually dealing with couple, in my case, and they could be gay or heterosexual. Doesn't really matter. There is generally, even in gay couple, there is somebody who is more in their feminine energy and somebody who's more in their masculine. With that, the feminine energy will be looking for security and privacy first. Security number one, privacy number two. The masculine energy will be looking more for ego. Doesn't mean they don't want security and privacy, but they may be a bit more ego status driven. Even if it's an adventure to the house so you can't see the house, they want it to be some point of show off. They may or may not be very aware of the fact that their partner is looking for a different dynamic first, just in hierarchical needs. And so when you're looking at that, you're first of all reading your people as to which one is looking for what, and then how does the land situation allow that to be delivered? Or if it's a renovation, what's the challenges with how you may alter the home so that first and foremost we can get sympathetic nervous system to relax, won't totally, but bring it down. And then that can be altered, obviously, with lighting, finishes, all kinds of things, but just in physical form, heights of ceilings, form of walls, the shapes of things, how you get to something, and then just in general, the expansiveness of like maybe outlook, but also privacy. And so with that, that's our first kind of, it's for me, it's the first kind of chunks that I'm trying to pull together. And then it's like the stories that make something an absolute favorite for them, something that's really important to them about it. And then where does the hierarchy of that story fit into the other sort of functions of the home? Everyone is a journey, and it's not one set of questions at one point in time. For the emotional floor plan, it's an ongoing peel back as we go through conceptual design. Some of the things that I have discovered, some of them are really like shocking. I'll give you an example of one that just, it's heart-wrenching. But I was asking somebody about their favorite space in their home, and they were like, it's the living room. And I'm like, cool, tell me about that. And they started to tell me about that. And it suddenly got really deep. Our conversation kind of dropped down a couple of notches. I'm going, oh, okay, this is interesting. A lot of vulnerability. And she ended up discovering in our conversation why the living room was so important to her. And that was because as a child, she'd been abused, sexually abused as a child. And the place that she was safest was the living room because nothing ever happened in the living room.
Yeah. Right.
And you go, oh my God. But she didn't realize that's why the living room was so important to her.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a psychologist. So I'm like, so I think that would be worth going and getting some help with just for your own self and your own trauma and your own healing. And not saying that the living room shouldn't be your most favorite place, and we really work on that. What we need to do is work on how we balance other spaces for you so that you feel safe and privacy to her. She didn't want privacy. And this is now a grown woman, but as a child, she'd been, physically abused and sexually abused. So those kinds of things you go, you don't know where it will land. And I wouldn't even attempt to design until she had gone and done more work. I wouldn't even attempt to design for her in that situation. I go, if you want to go and do some more work, do that. And then otherwise I'm doing my best guess, not my best informed guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can see that a lot of things are, and it's not just obviously in our home selection, but just in our preferences in general.
Mm.
They're so informed by those sort of childhood memories and moments. And a lot of them are completely unconscious to our, I guess, conscious awareness. Like
Yeah.
I look at myself in my home and it's like I'll always buy the latest, video game console and I have it
Uh-huh.
sitting there. And like, do I play it? Like basically never. The kids will play it here and there, but it's like I always kind of want to have the latest one there. If the new one comes out, I'll usually get it in the first couple of months that it comes out, and it's like just having it. There's this sort of comfort of just feeling like it brings back memories because I remember my teenage years. It was the video games were everything when I was a kid,
Yeah,
and
right.
now it's like even though I don't have the time, just knowing it's there, there's like a comfort in just feeling like I do have that. Like it's
Yep.
yeah, those little things like that.
So a really good example of that in a built space would be the window seat. And most women, more than men, most women will have a romantic notion of sitting in a window seat with maybe direct sunlight if it's a colder climate, otherwise beautiful daylight, with, if it's cold, cushions and a blanket and reading a book. And that story is space to relax, space to be alone, space to take time. And then that could also extend to, having a kid there with you reading a book, or a partner there with you. You've both got your back propped against a wall and your feet are tangled together and you're talking and you're connecting. There'll be a story that's attached to it. A bit like the video game, we'll put the window seat in and, 2 years later we'll be saying, so how many hours have you spent in your window seat? And they'll say none. And that's okay. That's fine. It's just interesting that it gives them their feeling. They still want it. The feeling still happens. It's a bit like that thing you can trick your subconscious mind. But if you don't have it, your subconscious mind never gets to get tricked. And so you never get to imagine all that and live that mentally versus physically. So same as you, man, like you're going, I could pick that thing up and play it any time. And that's enough to make you feel some feeling of success, maybe some feeling of playfulness, puts you in play state in your mind, creativity, challenge, competition. It probably brings up all those things that are so anchored into your teenage years, where it was like, yeah, get that, do that, yeah, do that. All that stuff is just anchored to that piece of whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's an anchored story. Yeah.
So with people's houses, I mean, obviously people have their dream home, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're obviously in a position where for a lot of people you actually are designing their dream home.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and when people sort of fantasize about these homes, what does that really say about who they actually are? Do you think?
I know. Do you have a dream home?
Honestly, for me, no. My dream home is it's always been, it's the wanting to be able to provide the dream home for the woman I'm with. So it's like
Right.
her dream home, it's like this, I want to be able to, I
Your
want a
dream
home
is
where,
to be able to provide that.
and to have her feel like she has that dream home. And like that to me is to have a woman who's in that dream home and it's our castle together. But it's like
Right.
the actual specifics on the decor, I really couldn't give a crap. It's like kind of, I
Oh,
just want to,
you probably could, but
yeah.
not until you're in the process.
Yeah, I think what it would be is it's sort of like I'll have a few little bits and pieces, but for the majority of it, I'm not that fussed, but there's a handful of things that, yeah, I definitely would want.
So then we start with your handful of things. We don't need to do this, but we start with your handful of things. But then we start with her full notebook full. And we start to see where those match and where they don't match. And then what's hierarchically, the hierarchical, let's just say, dollar value of them, but then need value of them, and need or want, do both. And what you're doing is you're going, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going, my ability to provide is I need to stand on that. I need to stand on my ability to provide. And that means you can have what you want. You don't have to compromise, or you don't have to have make do in any way. I want to be able to provide well enough that you don't have to make do or compromise. And that makes you feel more of who you are or want to be. A lot of men would fit into this category. A lot of men would. And then there'd be some pieces where you would be like, oh, if we're having that, then you can have that over there. I just don't want that. I don't mind you having it, but I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't want to have to deal with that. And a woman will have a bunch of things, obviously, that are important to them because they're nest makers. As well. So as men, we're more warriors. We're more, okay, let's go out and conquer something, or go get this, or go get the means, whatever it is. Whereas a woman will be, let's just say, I won't say woman, just say the feminine energy part, because we've got that as well as men. The feminine energy part will be, oh, how do I make a nest? And if you were a bachelor, you would still want to make some kind of nest of your own expression. And that would be your feminine energy, even though it might look really masculine at the end. That would be your feminine energy going, I want to create somewhere where it's got touch points of what belongs to me and my past and my future. But when you stand in your masculine energy, you go, I'm going to provide. And for the most part, choose whatever you want, because I'm such a good provider. And that makes me the hero on the white horse that comes along and delivers it, keeps everybody safe, fights off all the people who say it's too much of the budget or whatever else. We can afford that, we're having that. So it's a game of hierarchical thing. And then women are also, well, the female energy is to give. So, and part of your masculine provider is to give as well. So your feminine part starts in there. When a woman's making, or the feminine energy is making a nest, it's like a womb. It's making something. And then, so as it's doing that, it's primal. It's like, and then there's I want to say the ego part of it, but that won't outweigh the family part of it, the connections, the conversations, all those pieces. That won't outweigh the ego part of it. Won't outweigh it. It'll just be, can I make it more pretty, beautiful, flow better, practical? But practical but pretty. It's if you think of, like, you've got a body, a human body, and whether it's a 10, like the most desirable body that we could ever imagine, or whether it's a 2, then what we do is we dress it, and when we're a woman, we put makeup on it, and men sometimes they might just use lotions and potions, whatever. They may use sunscreens and stuff because they don't want it to look older or whatever. They will, and we will put things on it, and then we'll adorn it. We might put a necklace on it. We might put a ring on it. We might put a watch on it. Like, we start to adorn it. Now, men will adorn it less and women will adorn it more. And if you think that our biorhythms are completely different, a woman's biorhythm runs in 28-day cycle. A man's biorhythm runs in a 24-hour cycle. A woman, depending on where she is in her 28-day cycle, will determine how she wants to adorn herself, how she feels about herself, her view of the world, because her hormones are shifting over 28 days. Ours are on testosterone in the morning, and then it just plays out from there. So we're not as in our masculine energy. and even women with heavy masculine energy will be more logical and practical about it than they will be feminine about it. And that feminine will be to adorn it, to bring it around, to make it, to worship it, to make it more special. So when you get that part of a journey as well, you go, okay, what age are they? What's their aspirations? Have they got kids? Is it pre-kids? Is it, kids all grown up? Have they got grandkids? What is the story that they're in at that point? Are they perimenopausal or are they postmenopause? That will make a difference to their behaviors and the things that they want as well. So design's so simple, but you can see the journey, how it happens.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's interesting. Like I've rented a fair few places, and even though like we've got a place that we're kind of happy with and various, but like Jane, my partner, she's always looking at other places, and there's this constant lookout, and she'll show me a place, and like I look at it, and to me, I'm like, it's neither here nor there. They're basically it's the same as what we're in, and she's pointing out things like, oh, but look at the color of the floorboards and the color of the knobs and the handles on the doors and the
Yep.
decor, and to me, these things are so insignificant. Like to me, on a scale of 1 to 10, they don't even make a 0.1. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
they're literally not even
Yep.
on my radar. Yet for
Yep.
her, they're like a 9 out of 10. It's something that she would almost move home and pay extra for a different color floorboard because to her
Yep.
it matches differently. And I struggle so much to get my brain around it because to me I go straight into that logic brain, which is like, well, yeah, a different color floorboard is not going to add any value to the house. It's not going to change my mood any day. So, yeah, I mean, do you find that male, female, it like plays out across the board or is it just me?
Yeah, look, it does. And in saying that, the trick is, it's not a trick, but the thing is to engage you where you're at. And we don't need to talk about houses with you. We need to talk about things like your podcast, the connection with people, what you get from that. We need to talk about the gaming console. We need to talk about those detail things that do light you up. Oh, so this is more important than that. This feels more like, this is a feeling of, I want to say success or comfort or progression or the latest piece of something. That's talking to you where you're at. Now, Jane, your partner, probably goes, that's his thing. That's Ben's thing. I don't need to know about that shit. That's his. And just like you're going, that floorboard doesn't add any value. Well, you wait till you rock up with your checkbook and you'll find that it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to her. And that's the difference, is that floorboard has some story that comes from her friend Sally's house, or it comes from this movie, or it comes from this place we were in, or it comes from my grandmother's home, or it was when we were in Santorini and there was, everything was a paved floor except for, remember that hotel, that really nice one where we had the cocktails and that guy was playing whatever, and there was the Bougainvillea, and you go, oh my God, what is she talking about? I do remember the hotel, but I don't remember any of those other things. And you said to me, and that's the piece. And she says that floorboard's the same color floorboard. Whether she's right or wrong doesn't make any difference. That's her story and her construct, and it's held with special moments. And then it is worth, its dollar value has nothing to do with its emotional value. So when we're building an emotional floor plan, the dollar value is not relative to an emotional floor plan. Bringing back those touch points, and you told me right at the start, I go and buy that gaming console and the kids may play it and all the rest. And I'm too busy to play it. I don't get to, but I could at any point, I could stop this recording now and go and do it. And that is the emotional floor plan of, if it was put away in a back room, for instance, and you didn't go through that space, then it probably wouldn't. You'd stop buying them. You'd go, but because it's there, you see it and you emotionally shift your mental state because of opportunity. And whether you can take it or not is another thing. So
Yeah.
that's where I go. It is both there. It's just that you look at it and you go, the last one I bought was, I don't even know what they cost, but I'm just going to go, the last one I bought was $1,000. Yeah, they've gone up to $1,200. That's probably a bit steep. What other features has it got? Oh, don't worry about it. Just buy it.
That's pretty much the way the logic goes. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And there might be the one game that I buy it for, and that's about it. But it's like I can justify it in my own mind, mainly because for me, it's almost a deservability. I work hard enough. If I want to
Yeah.
buy this, there's not much else I'd spend my money on, so I might as well do it. But yeah, I can see that there is definitely a piece that I get from just simply
Oh,
having it
yeah.
there. Yeah, it's almost probably like a kid with their blanket. You know what I mean? It's like just having it there kind of gives a
Mhm.
sense of comfort.
We've got a guitar sitting in our house. We've got 2 guitars sitting in our house and nobody plays a guitar.
Yeah,
And I love music, but I don't play music. The guitar sits there with the hope that we've got friends who play guitar, that I can talk them into picking it up and playing something when they're at my home.
yeah,
They can't go, I don't have a guitar with me. I go, no, I got one right here. It's more that. It's more that in my upbringing. So I was brought up in New Zealand, and there's a bit of a thing with all Maori people can sing and play guitar. Now, that isn't true. A lot of them can, though, sing and play guitar. And we would go someplace, as our white family, we'd go someplace to the beach or whatever, and we might be getting tuatūas or pippies or something like that, and we'd be digging in the sand with our feet and getting these shellfish out and putting them in a bucket. And there would not always be, but often there'd be like, a Maori family sitting there. I should say Māori, because that's the correct way to say it, Māori family. And they would be sitting there and they'd have lit a fire and they'd be cooking their pippies or can't say the word. Anyway, they'd be cooking their shellfish on the fire and eating it while they were there, and somebody would have a guitar and they'd be singing away and harmonizing and all the rest. And the smell of the smoke still triggers that for me. But having a guitar and friends who play guitar and getting them to pick it up and play a tune, it to me is like takes me back to being a 10-year-old on the beach. It's cold. It's kind of like, it's New Zealand. It's like, but it was an escape. You weren't at home. You weren't, you'd gone on an outing of some kind. And yeah, to this day, that whole thing, like my father was a big smoker. Like he'd bloody chuff away, 60 cigarettes a day or something. And he's a fisherman. He loves fishing, but he fishes off the rocks. So he'd surf cast off the rocks. And to this day, as much as I hate cigarette smoking, if I'm at the beach or near the rocks, and there's waves and I smell a cigarette, I'm there with my dad sitting on the rocks and having time with a guy that otherwise was busy.
yeah,
And he didn't give a shit whether I was there or not. I was a pain to take, probably.
yeah.
It wasn't that he wanted the time with me so much. It was that he wanted the time to go and be alone and recharge his batteries. And I would go with him. But it wasn't about me. It was about him sitting there quietly, chuffing on a cigarette. The red glow of the end of it and then the smell of the acidic smoke coming past is what I remember. I don't remember any conversations. I don't remember any other
Yeah.
things.
I think a lot of us have memories of our parents or grandparents that are related to those smells. Like I know when I walk into some people's houses, it's like, oh, just whether it's a cookies or
Hmm.
baking, or it could be the smell of the certain perfume, or like you said, it could
Yeah.
be simply something like cigarette smoke, but it reminds you of that person, especially if they've passed on. It's like that
Yeah.
kind of brings you back. Food can do the same thing as well, tastes and
Mhm.
flavors. And it's a big part of what you're doing with that emotional floor plan is a lot of the house and having certain rooms and certain things on display kind of conjure up those good, I guess, generally good emotions and memories that you're trying to bring to the surface. So I guess you have a life that's filled with things that are meaningful.
Touch points, I call them like heartstones, or, the the pieces of your heart that got lit up at a certain point. And like we say, we want to make a home that makes your heart sing. We want to put little pieces of these journeys. And sometimes it's a very direct translation of something, and other times it's a translation that only you as the owner would know was the translation.
Almost like a metaphor that's secretive.
Yeah, yeah. And it starts them off in the new chapter in the home, but they know that that piece there was designed this way for this reason. An example is the number of what we call Dutch doors, which is a door that's got a separate top and bottom. So the bottom of it can stay closed and the top can swing open. Now, whether it be solid or glass at the top and the bottom of it be solid or glass, it's usually solid on the bottom and often glass on top. But it's kind of like a stable door, one part swings separately from the other. And you get them a lot in farms because it keeps snakes out, keeps dogs out. So, but you can have the airflow coming through the top. And how many I've drawn, but plenty of them. And some of them are sleek and modern, and others of them look like they've been made out of recycled timber, and others of them are painted up like they're out of the Hamptons. But they are a touchstone, they're a heart touch. That's that point that touches the story of somebody's heart, of somewhere that they grew up just about always, or where they went to regularly when they grew up.
Mhm.
And that's just a simple door that takes them flooding back to a whole bunch of memories from childhood or whatever, but good feelings.
Mhm.
Good feelings. And we make it work practically. It's not put there just as a piece of decoration. We work it out so it works practically and it creates what it should do. So then it creates another set of memories, say that's for a couple with kids. It creates another set of memories and a story that they go, well, you remember, your grandma, yeah, well, her mother, so your great-grandmother, her farmhouse had one of these doors, so we got Adrian to put this into our home. But we found it through digging through an emotional floor plan.
Yeah, and I guess
Isn't it cool? So fun.
I think everybody's floor plans obviously are so unique to them. And whenever I've thought about it, I've never actually considered what you've talked about today really at all in design. And it's actually given me a much more appreciation for the value that a home can really bring as far as bringing that uniqueness to it. I always thought there was an objective value to a home and it was more dependent on, all right, well, this will be more expensive because it costs more to install. But I can see that one home could be worth 10 times more to a certain buyer than someone else just because the emotional attachment, for instance.
The
But I'm just
story
wondering, like,
matches. The
yeah,
story matches up, your story and another story. A lot of people at different age groups, so have stories around music and events with music. Oh, went to this concert, went to this festival, did these things. So be a story that's locked around music, and it will have different elements that happened as well. I met this girl or I met this guy, whatever it is. There'll be different elements that are locked to that event. And they hear the song and they are back at that, oh, yeah, I remember this, da, 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 da. I've got one of those with Crowded House, the band Split Ends that started out in New Zealand as Split Ends, ended up Crowded House. And I went to a music festival and I went, I'm going to go to this music festival. No, I had no friends who wanted to go, but I did know a couple of girls that were going from another town 400 miles away from, and it was kind of in the middle, a couple of 100 miles, and we were in the middle. And I knew these girls were going. Now, I don't know how many people went, but 50,000 or something. And I'm like, okay. So all I took was enough clothes for the 3 days, some money, and a toothbrush, a comb, and I didn't take any bedding or anything to sleep in. And I went, I'm going to bump into those girls. I'm going to stay with them. And I did. But isn't that just weird? No mobile phone, nothing
yeah,
else, just bumped into them and ended up staying with them. And Crowded House, Split Ends, played at that festival. And when they played at that festival, I remember lying on the grassy hill that there was a big crowd at the bottom, and lying on the grassy hill with one of these girls, and the amount of marijuana smoke that was wafting over us. We weren't smoking it, but we were getting wafted with all this dope smoke, and the two of us just getting super giggly because we got stoned just from being there. And, and then, the festival. There's so many little points. First time I'd ever been to a festival. And God knows what I was thinking, not taking anything to sleep in, just going, yeah, I'll bump into those girls. I'll be right. Like, how's that? And I met one of them on holiday, I don't know, months and months before. But I had checked, I'd rung and checked that they were going. Yeah, they were going. Yeah. So, okay, fine. But think of that. And then I go, a music festival, it's got to equal that or better that.
Yeah.
And that band locked in my brain forever because it's such a strong thing. So different times of our lives and different experiences like that lock those things in. And I don't know that we ever get to recreate them, but they set a whole lot of things, Like one way it's part of a success story to me. I went on my own. I caught a bus to this festival. I just got on a bus and went. And I finished work on the Thursday afternoon and jumped on a bus at 5 o'clock that night with like a small duffel bag full of stuff. And I was like, okay, go. And I slept on the bus, and in the morning we were at the festival.
Yeah.
Crazy, eh? So those things, I think, when we unearth those things from people, we get to tie some story back to it. And that's the beauty of podcast. You get to learn these things about people and you tie some story back to it. But when you're actually going to produce something for someone, so like think of yours with, you produce, say, a website for somebody and it's branded, and you, to be truly authentic, you're looking for if they're the brand, how am I representing their values in this brand statement along the way so that they feel it's them and they then stand on it a bit taller and a bit prouder.
Yeah. No, I often
Same
say that
thing.
with logos in particular.
Yeah.
It's like, the logo really doesn't matter, but what does matter is that you like your logo. That's it.
And it's
You know
got
what I
a
mean? It's
story
like,
for you. Yep.
yeah, at the very least, you want to, feel good when you hand it to people or show people. You don't want to be ashamed of it.
That's it. Isn't that so true? True.
It's the same with the clothes you wear. It's the same thing. It doesn't really matter what other people think about it, but you need to feel good in them. You need to at least think you look decent,
I have this big laugh with that because being a clothes designer for many years, everybody goes, oh my God, they will get self-conscious when they know that about what they might be wearing. And I don't actually really notice what people are wearing unless it's terrible or unless it's exciting. I don't really notice. Sometimes I'll see people and I see how they're dressed. And the first thing I'll do is I'll look at the other elements around them as, do they have means to make a choice?
Yeah.
So do they have the means to make a choice? Because there's people who don't have the means to make a choice. And this sounds really, I think, kind of snobby or whatever. Not the means part. I can look, and whether their clothes are expensive or cheap, in fashion or not in fashion, I can read how much style that person has by what they put together and how they put it together. And I can get a gauge on how much style they have. So when I go and see a client, I very much do that. I look, and I look at how they're dressed, or if I'm at their home, I look at how they have things in their home, and I can judge how much artistic or creative style or flair they have from the elements and how they've put them together. Doesn't mean the elements have to be expensive. It's how they've grouped them together. It's how they're presenting them determines how far they can see. And I've got a friend who's like this audio genius, and he used to say to me, they can't even hear what they're asking for. They've read about it or whatever, I've hearing tested them, they don't have the frequency available to hear it. They think they can hear something. And that's fine. It costs them $100,000 extra. That's because they know somebody who's going, oh, I've got this and told this story, and they want to match it. They want to be there or better, but they actually physically, their hearing's too damaged to hear it or to whatever. It's that kind of thing. It's like you buy a washing machine and it has 43 functions, and you use like the same 3 functions every day or every week. The 43 are to match the other different people who might want those. It's that thing of what is it that we meet people where they're at. So meeting them where they're at's I think the biggest thing, and then being able to dissect it, analyze it, and then give them more of what they want because you've met them where they're at. They can get comfortable and tell you, express themselves, be vulnerable.
So is there any way you'd like to take the conversation before we close things?
One of the things that would be really interesting is I was doing one on my podcast the other day. I was doing a podcast with a guy called Greg Tankersley, and he is a partner in a firm in America called Alpine or Alpine House. For those of us who are not in the US, we might say Alpine, but Alpine House. And they do these very, very growing up homes, like expensive, beautiful, beautiful, I would say old-fashioned, but modern old-fashioned homes. And one of the things that was really interesting that came out of the conversation is the shift in, and I'm really keen to hear what you think with this, the shift in where money's being spent. So his customers all would have been mid-20s on previously, and now they are mid-20s. And so they're still asking him to design homes like he does for the 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds. But the shift is what they call internet money. And it's not influencers. Influencers typically don't make a lot of money. It's actually internet-driven commerce, and that may be just attention, or it may be a product or whatever. It's all these younger people who have got big means to design or to have designed these absolutely beautiful custom homes on estates and stuff like that. So my question for you would be, tell me where you see that, because you're in that tech ed space as well. Tell me where you see this going, and you would know the difference between, say, a 20-year-old customer and a 50-year-old customer that are both looking to achieve whatever. Yeah, tell me your thoughts.
No, well, look, I think what you're pointing to, the traditional way most people have made wealth is a sort of slow, steady, practical way. You grow up, you go to university, then you go start at the bottom and you work your way up. And then at some point you make that shift to working for yourself. And then by the time you're done that, usually in your late 30s, 40s, and then you don't really make your wealth till you're in the 50s. And then that's when they're coming to see you to build their dream house when they've, built it that way. Now with the internet, that whole process can be fast tracked. You can immediately cut out all of the university, cut out all of that, and just go straight into learning from the best. And basically, to go from zero to hero with a successful business, you can do that in 5 years now. So, you start at 20, you get the right advice, the right mentor. By the time you're 25, you've got a successful business, you're turning over multi-million dollars. You're in a point where you're like, well, yeah, I've got to build a house, I might as well do it. And then in that position where financially you can get ahead. I mean, I think the interesting thing that I would wonder is that I wonder at that age, do you have nostalgia at 25 for your 20s? You know what I mean? Because I think by the time you're 40, even late 30, 40, you have this, oh my God, 20 years ago when I was 18, there was this and this, like there's a level of nostalgia, but I don't know if you have that at that young age. What are they trying to, from an emotional floor plan state, what would they be trying to harken back to? The good old 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Back to when I was 18, now I'm 23. It's a really, really interesting thing because they haven't got the depth of the story or the chapters. I'm working with a young couple now who have the money and the enthusiasm and the work ethic, and I am constantly amazed. It's like being with very, very sharp 50-year-olds, but with the enthusiasm of 20-year-olds. And that was why I figured it would be a really good question to sort of put into this. And we're creating for them a part to their home, where it's an addition to their home, which is a wellness centre. And this is sort of the accessory du jour of homes right now, is a wellness centre. And in their case, they want something that's available to them, that keeps them without excuses for taking care of themselves. And in their 20s, they're going, well, we can live old. Money's not a problem. We're going to live till we're old. So we want to be super healthy, and we want to grow our health span, because we want to do the things now in our 20s that's going to affect how we live in our 40s, that's going to affect how we live in our 60s, and so on. We want to put the best in right now, and the best of what will support us, and the knowledge that only exists now, even around this sort of space. And seriously, I look at them and go, wow, they are talking about concepts that I don't hear 40 and 50-year-olds embrace. They are talking about people that they want to get around, who are billionaires, not just the rich guy at the end of the road like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki going and hanging with Keith Cunningham. It's beyond that. It's like they're going, these are the identified ones in the world, be with them. And then we will soak up as much of them as fast as possible on what's publicly available. They're at university. If they're not working, they're at university or playing all day long, but they're playing and they're going, these guys are doing whatever. This is what they say. This is how they do it. This is what they've done with it. Oh, they've made a shift to this. They're studying these other paths because it's there to be studied. And that thing that you said doesn't really matter what age they are now. You can go from 0 to hero in 5 years, provided you've got the work ethic and you choose the right mentors, and you make yourself available to the people who are going to pay for that, who are going to pay for whatever you produce, whether it be a product or entertainment or whatever it is. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and so exciting. They don't even have kids, but they're planning it. And then you're going, so how do you help them with that? Like, how do you help them get so that they don't disadvantage themselves with the home they've got? They'll be able to afford multiple more homes in their life. This one's a dream home, but a stepping stone.
Yeah. I look at life often as the concept of spinning plate. And like, you've got your health, you've got your fitness, you've got your family, you've got your kids and your work. And what I find a lot of people try to do is they start trying to spin all the plates at once. And, if you're trying to spin all these plates at once, it's very hard to get any velocity with any of them. And, you get one spinning a little bit. All right, well, I had the family and I've really put my effort on here. And all right, that's spinning. Now I've got to make some money. Let me go work over here.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of these young people do is they basically go, you know what? The money and the career, if I get this one spinning really well, it fixes all these other ones. And they just, from the get-go, they get this career path and they just put all their energy, effort and time and just spin the hell out of this plate that it's got going so fast, they can walk away from it and they can come back 10 years later and it'll still be spinning.
Still,
they can go and put the attention on all these other things, where I think for a lot of, well, certainly my experience of life is, you know what, I get the career going. The minute I go and focus on family, I come back to the career and it's almost stopped. And it's like, now I have to take the focus off the family and go spin this other plate. And there's this constant back and forth between all these areas of your life. Hopefully these young people, when they get really good at this, they've developed this skill to be able to just focus on something, get it working and getting it moving. But there is something to be said in being able to balance lots of things at once and have the family, have the work, have the enjoyment, and have some level of balance where you can do that. And yeah, obviously everybody's different, but there's also some wisdom that I've found that comes with age, in that sometimes the speed of the plate doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, because it's better to have a little bit all of those spinning than to just have one spinning really fast and to be missing out on the family or missing out on these other areas of your life. 'Cause life's about
Yeah.
a lot more than just money and success, as much as it makes life much simpler.
Yeah, it does. And it comes with its complications as well. I do. I'm like you. I find it really fascinating. You know, you started by saying, "Well, Adrian, you know, you host this, you do that, you do these things. Like, what's the one thing that you kind of like settle into?" In my case, it's the one thing is designing and connecting with people. There's different vehicles for doing that bring me different levels of joy. I love, love, love designing things, and I really enjoy the people. Like, the people are more important than what we design. It's the people and the environment and then the design that fulfills that for them, because the design is finding an expression of, and this is why I'd call it design. It's not art, because the design is finding an expression for the land and them and their emotions that come together to service to them. It's not me sitting there going, yes, I think I'll create a castle like this. There are plenty of architects who do that, and that's the difference. For me, it's like, don't work for people you don't like is key. Do not. They'll ruin your journey, and they'll ruin the journey of your other clients because they're just a pain in the ass. So don't work for people you don't like. And then secondly, like them enough that you're so curious that you want to find out more about them and build their stories with them. And in building their stories with them, you create this magical connection you couldn't get any other way than being a part of another story. You know, you're creating another story with them. And so that part of it, I think, is the joy of it. And with the younger people who have the money or the means to be able to do things, again, it's like jumping into your younger self and playing, but they are timelining. Okay, so we need this for this, we need this for this, we need this about here, we're going to have kids. Now, that may or may not happen that way. You know, everybody listening who's got kids, it's not like, oh, we'll make one on Tuesday. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. You might not get another shot at that for another month. You know, like, it's that kind of thing. So it's not finite, but it is something that, you know, if you plan it and you put your intention around it and you set up everything else, then there's a good chance that maybe it comes off that way, provided you haven't put too much pressure on yourself, and then, you know, nothing works and whatever. But just those things, I think this is the most fascinating thing. And so design-wise, yeah, I love designing. Podcast, it is just a piece of joy. It's an endorphin rush. It's you know, it's full of dopamine. It's discovery. It's finding out. It's like learning new things, getting perspective on a piece of a life. Out of the hundreds that I've done, I go, there's very few that I don't kind of hold in some high regard of what I learnt from the person or how much I got to enjoy the discovering the person.
No, I've been finding that myself as well. I think there's an extra level of intent behind you listening when you're in a podcast situation as a host as well. That even in day to day conversations, even if you really want to be there, you can't help but kind of feel like you almost can check out. Where it almost feels like it's a role and a responsibility in these conversations to really be alert and to really be taking it in. It feels so much richer, whether they are or not. They feel that way. So now, look, it's been an absolute pleasure.
The listeners can comment on that. I'd
Yeah,
love to see
definitely.
comments on that. Like, if you can go in and put comments on what you got from what we talked about, but also whether that little piece, because I 100% agree, Ben, the intention and that push that we do to be closer, and our attention is locked to each other. People say to me, why do you wear like headphones? And I'm like, because I don't need any distractions.
Yeah. No.
I just want to be with the person.
It's been awesome to have you on, Adrian. So if people
Cheers,
are
man.
interested to learn a little bit more about yourself and where they can find out a bit more, where can they find more about you?
Probably the easiest place would be either go to Adrian Ramsay, ADrianRamsay.com, or ARDesignhouse.com. And you'll find me there, Instagram, Adrian Ramsay, blah, 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 all those different places. But those are my two kind of web-based places. Or watch out for the next series of Dream Homes Revealed on Channel 9. And I don't know when it's going to be showing, but I'll be in that. So,
Cool. No,
do that. And if
that's
they want to find out more, just reach out, send me an email, and we'll go from there.
beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Adrian. Take care.
Cheers, buddy. You too.